there are times when I get so involved in a story, like it's so compelling, and I find the traditional media doesn't answer all the questions, or certainly doesn't go deep enough for my own satisfaction. And then what I have to do is get the answer myself. And I'm heading down Pine Ridge Road, and specifically I'm visiting 13 Pine Ridge Road to see a house that 87-year-old woman Kathleen Pollock felt drawn to. And she lived in a retirement home, got dressed up, put her makeup on, called a cab, was taken down this road, and then walked up the lane to her old house and died there. As the newspapers say, she had beginning ALZHEIMER'S. So there's speculation as to whether she was just confused or actually purposely went here to die on her property or near the house. So this here is 13 Pine Ridge. I brought my laptop, and typing in or searching for Kathleen Pollock. I think I'll read the Toronto Star. Missing senior, 87, found dead outside her Scarborough mansion. By all accounts, 87-year-old Kathleen Pollock loved her old home at 13 Pine Ridge Drive in Scarborough, overlooking Lake Ontario. It was the property known as the Pollock Estate, where she lived for a half a century, where she raised her family before the children grew up and she and her husband went to nursing homes. And it was there where she was found dead around 4:30 a.m. Friday, hours after taking a cab from her retirement home to pay one last visit to the abandoned and once grand mansion. Greg Pollock, Kathleen's son, said he thinks his mother was going for one last visit to the home she loved. Quote, "There was no indication of trauma. She seemed to just lay down peacefully by the front door and pass away," he said, his voice wavering. "I think this was her last wish." Pollock said his mother was independent and would often do errands on her own, but she had never gone missing. "She doesn't venture far. This was quite a journey. It was almost like a mission," Pollock said. She hadn't visited the house in a while. Destiny was calling her, and she was going home. Neighbor Risalina Rosal, who lived next door to the Pollock estate, saw her climb out of the cab alone on Thursday and take uncertain steps across the snow toward the now empty mansion, which had been sold to developers for more than $2 million in 2011. The property is slated to be subdivided into 3 lots for grand homes on 1-acre lots. She passed by, Rosal said. The gate was closed. I said she shouldn't be going there by herself. She could hardly walk. She was limping. I was monitoring her. Plumber Loris Fitz, who was working at Rosal's home, went out to try to help the elderly woman. As she walked across the snow, and it was really bitter cold that day, I remember. Pollock, whose family owned Pollock Shoes retail chain in Ontario, was a little bent over and her steps were uncertain, but she was insistent that she walk across the snow to the boarded-up mansion. She was wearing a winter coat and carrying a plastic bag, and was clearly determined to go to the house under the grand pines when Vitz approached her. Pollock made it immediately clear to Vitz that she didn't want help as she walked toward her old home. She was fine, Vitz said. She was lucid. She said no. She just said she was going next door. That was her home for 50 years. Rosal watched her slow, determined walk until she reached the front door and assumed things were all right. Pollock's body was found crumpled on the doorstep of her empty former family home around 4:30 a.m. Rosal's husband, Doug, 69, said he can totally understand why Kathleen Pollock felt the need to go back to the wooded home one last time. Is this heaven or is it not? You know, it's funny how many elderly refer to their house as heaven. My own parents, my mother refers to her house as paradise. Paradise. And the thing about Alzheimer's is that there's something called sundowning. And that is that usually in the late afternoon, there's a need for some elderly to go home. And what they'll do is ask for their hat and coat and get all dressed up. And they can be waiting for a bus or, going for a walk. But it's very well known, this whole idea of sundowning. Now, whether Ms. Pollock was sundowning and just was successful in getting here, or whether she was very much all there, lucid, and realized this is where she wanted to be. Because one thing about Alzheimer's is that the disease itself has a horrible, horrible ending. And it wasn't maybe 2-3 days before they were mentioning a physician who was growing older and realized that he was getting the first stages of Alzheimer's as well. So he put together a concoction of pills that he would take to make sure that he didn't get too far along Alzheimer's, because eventually you can't even swallow anymore. You can't feed yourself. The end is really horrible. So he made this concoction to end it before he would ever get that far down the road. And his son said that eventually he forgot what the pills were for. And maybe, it might have been that Miss Pollock was confused. And then again, she might have known exactly what she was doing. And she had a different set of pills. Just passed away on the doorstep of her own little piece of heaven.